Hey friends, welcome to 2 Pixels Off. My name is Brad Hussey, and I've been dubbed Pixel 1 in the previous episode, so I will take it. I am humbled. I am honored. So I wanted to quick shout out to Pixel 2, Mike Janda. How's it going, Mike?
Good, thank you. I love being Pixel 2. I'm like Robin and you're Batman. I am Tonto and you're the Lone Ranger. I am Harley Quinn and you're the Joker. Where else can I go with this?
I'm Augustus, and you are Captain Call from
You're
Lonesome
losing
Dove.
me. What are you talking about? Nobody's watched Lonesome Dove. Nobody's watched Lonesome Dove.
I love Lonesome Dove. And
geez.
you could be my Call, and I'll be Gus.
Okay, I've never seen Lonesome Dove.
Welcome to 2 Pixels Off, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs.
But that is how we have it structured here, and I don't mind being Robin. I don't mind being Robin. It's
You're
good.
my Robin to my Batman. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay, that's good.
Just while we got your ears and we got your attention, we're kicking off our show with some silly jokes and comparisons here. Take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast app, because that gets us in the ears of some new listeners just like you. And the more, the merrier in my eyes, in my opinion here. The more of you, the better. It makes for a really fun. It makes a really fun show. We get lots of cool feedback and comments, and it's lovely. So please do that. Also, wanted to give a shout out to our friends at Wix Studio for helping to make this podcast and these amazingly incredible 5 stars on your favorite podcast app shows. It's because of Wix Studio we're able to do some incredible content like this. I'm so bold to say it's incredible. I really hope everybody else thinks so. Actually,
Incredible. It's incredible, Brad. It's so incredible.
It is incredible. You know what else is incredible is an amazing client experience. And one of those things that to make a really good client experience, let's say you're working with a hotel, and those clients have some specific needs, and they have a lot of features and things that they need technically in order to run their hotel. And actually, Wix Studio just launched a new integration with, it's called Wix Hotels by Hotel Runner. And it actually allows you to run every aspect of like a hospitality business through your Wix Studio site. So you can do like availability, reservations, calendars, all these sorts of things that you'd expect when booking a hotel. So if your clients are hotels, maybe they're motels, maybe they're part of a chain of hospitality operations, you can actually offer your services, especially if you're a Wix Studio agency, and fully take care of them because of that integration. So I think that was actually a really cool announcement.
I think that's really cool. Or to put it more in the mainstream, if you have a client that has a rental property that wants to Airbnb this kind of property and rent it out through their website, turnkey capability through Wix Studio. Doesn't have to be you working for Marriott and rebuilding their whole platform on Wix Studio. Let's be realistic. Lots and lots of people have rental properties, Airbnbs, VRBOs. Go ahead and build that stuff inside of a platform like what we're talking about.
Yep. Makes it easy to manage. And speaking of managing, I actually wanted to throw something at you here and kind of get a gut reaction. There's a saying
from
that
me
goes
or for the listeners?
From you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Spotlight on you.
Oh, I'm ready.
There's no such thing as bad clients, just designers bad at managing them. What say you?
I say that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen on an Instagram carousel ever in my life. Whoever is putting that into some kind of educational platform has not worked with enough clients, because if you have, you know that some clients are actually bad. It's not just hyperbole. There are clients out there that want to take advantage of you, that don't plan to pay you, that are going to be miserable to work with, that are going to be condescending and combative in their relationship with you because for some twisted reason, they think that that's how they're going to get a good product out of you. It's so mental. It's such a lie That's how I feel about that. There are such thing as bad clients, and you still have to manage the difficult ones. There's a difference between a client bully and a difficult client. Client bullies we should get rid of. Difficult clients we need to manage better.
So let's find out then what makes a bad client. What's an actual bad client? And the difference between a bully and just like a difficult, this is people. People are difficult. So what's the difference between a difficult person and an actual bully? How do we determine that?
Let me give you an example. So I had two clients that, I had a lot of bad clients that approached us, but two that we ended up, one we didn't work with. We just told them it's not a good fit. Let me tell you story number one. Story number one, client comes in. Inside the meeting, there were a couple of guys from our office and one of our account managers. She was the best account manager. She was so good, so organized, so friendly, so confident. She just checked every box of what you would want in an account manager. She was awesome. And every time she spoke in the meeting, the client would turn and reply to the dudes in the meeting, not to her. It was like complete
disregard,
gender bias, disregard, machismo nonsense that client was doing inside the meeting. That is a deal breaker. That is drawing the line. That is a bad client waiting to happen right there. You have to not take those clients on. You are better off saying no than taking on a client that has that level of disrespect to someone when it's so clearly a gender bias or a bias of any kind type of thing. I just, that one just, it still pisses me off. I get rubbed on that one. Then I had another client who came in, and this guy, I think I shared this story somewhere else, but he came in, we had already met with his project manager person, had an hour-long meeting with them, got the ins and outs, and then it was him coming in to kind of get a vibe on who we were. So we start going down a little 5-slide about our agency deck. That's what this was. I know it's not about me, but the objective of him coming to our office was to learn about our agency to determine whether he felt it was a good fit. So what are we going to do? We're going to tell him a little bit about our agency. We start going through this little 5-slide deck, and I called it out as a 5-slide deck. I said, we just have a couple of slides that we want to take you through just so you can get to know our agency. And I start on slide number 1. He interrupts and he said, I don't want to know any of this stuff. Just tell me what you can do for us. And he started being really just impatient, condescending, just jerk vibe. And halfway through the meeting, I was like, you know what? I don't think we're a good fit. We're not going to be a good fit to work together. I think you should choose one of the other agencies that you're looking at for this. This is not going to be a good fit for us. And I let him go, let him walk, told him to walk, because I just could not tolerate that kind of vibe. It was just so ugly. You can feel it. That yuck.
No
from
amount
the
of money
client.
is worth
You can
putting yourself
feel
through
it.
that sort of. Yeah.
No, it's the worst. It's the worst. So those two were examples of bad clients that you shouldn't take on. You should say no to those people and take your time going and looking for better clients. And they can still be difficult, but not bad. Those bully, mean-spirited, disrespectful. They don't want to win-win. They are intentionally trying to take advantage of you. Those are the kinds of clients that you got no time for that.
Yeah, right. Versus the client who is a person, a human person, like with all the baggage that they come with, and they try their best to be a good business person and to be a good client, but they're still a person, and they're going to have their preferences. They're going to have, they're going to change their mind. Maybe they're not so good at communicating, or they assume certain things, but they're just a bit difficult. You got to navigate that. So that's different than an actual bully.
Yeah. So we fire the bullies and we manage the difficult clients. That I can get on board with. But the idea, like your very first opening thing, the idea that there's no such thing as bad clients, that's a bunch of crap. There are bad ones out there. But most of the time, we will assess that a client is bad when reality is that they're just difficult. They're just difficult. And we can manage them through it if we know what we're looking for. So we have a handful of things that difficult clients do, and we're going to talk about how to respond to those things in an effective way to best manage the client. Brad, what's one of the things that we could easily say, oh, that's a bad client, but reality is that they're just difficult?
A big obvious one that stands out to me is like scope creep or perceived scope creep, where the client, they get excited and they want to add some new stuff. They want to add features and deliverables. They want to, they got you on board. I assumed it was included. I want to add this. I want to, I thought we could add a little more while you're in at it. A lot of the time I think we think that that's a bad client and we should avoid them like the plague. Is that true?
Oh, I think that that's such a common one that people think, oh, this is a bad client. They want to add, they keep wanting to add stuff. Yeah. The truth is that they're just excited. I did it when we landscaped our lawn in this house that we live in now. I got excited. We ended up we kept adding more lights, and we added some more trees and stuff. And we were just like, yeah, while you're in there with the entire yard dug up, let's throw in another wire over to here. Now, they charged us for each of those things, and I didn't mind because I understood that we were asking for something out of scope. If you let your client change the scope without you changing the price, then you're letting them take advantage of you knowingly or unknowingly. And a lot of them are just unknowingly taking advantage of you. Don't be afraid to push back. When the client asks for something out of scope, you say, I love that idea, but it's going to require a modification to the budget. Let's change the budget. We're going to create a little addendum. I think it's going to be another $500 to add that thing. Are you comfortable with that price? I'll send you the addendum to the contract later today. That's all it is. But if you let them run rampage over you, where they ask for a thing and you say, okay, and then they ask for another thing and you say, okay, and then all of a sudden you unknowingly turned a difficult client into a bad client who is now taking advantage of you, and they're not meaning to most of the time.
Right. What if the client then, pushes back and says, oh, we thought that would be included. It doesn't seem like such a big deal. You're already in there. It doesn't seem like such a big deal. I thought it would just be included. How would you handle that?
I love that. Oh, I'm sorry. I can see how you might have that assumption. If you look here in our agreement, we did articulate out each of the rounds and what was going to be delivered. And we do have a section in our proposal or in our contract of the things that were not included. And that thing is checked that it's not included there. So we did articulate it in two places. I understand that, yes, we're in the weeds of it. Just so you know, it's going to be like $500 to change it. But if you spun that up as a new project completely, it'd probably be $1,200, $1,700 to add that feature to your website. But because we're already in it, it is only a $500 increase. Is it okay if I send you that addendum to the contract later today?
I like that. And there's I kind of wanted to mention something there, something that I like saying in that scenario where there's a bit of a sticking point here. There's friction. And I think in those friction moments, that actually creates a lot of opportunity for client trust or for strengthening the relationship. And what I like to try and do is you kind of had a formula there, so you understood them. You showed you were like a rational, nice, empathetic human being, and you heard what they said. Oh, I thought it was included. You're just already in there. I totally understand it. Why you would think that. It makes total sense. I am in here. I got everything open. So you're kind of reflecting back what it is that they said, so that you show that you're listening. You're not just wanting to speak over them and get your 2 cents in and try and get more money out of them.
Yeah.
And you go, it makes total sense. But you know what? Here's the level of effort and detail that goes into this. It's not just me, okay, I'll switch over here. You explain to them, you're task switching and you're taking away from this. And it's not really, adding to the value of the project. And it's not about being a task rabbit. And I like to sometimes remind the client in a respectful way of kind of who's flying the plane here.
Yeah.
And the client likes that. It's like, hey, I just want to remind you, you're in the cockpit, and I'm the pilot. And so you just go sit down in first class back there. We'll make sure you're taken care of. Now, I don't just say that. I don't want to be condescending or hurt their feelings, but that's more or less how I go about it. Now, what I also do, in that formula that you just went through, is you got empathy. You acknowledge what they said and their assumptions, and you explain why it's kind of out of scope or extra, but then close it off with what the point here is, like, it's going to cost you extra. I've explained why. What I like to do just to close that off, maybe it's a little cheeky, is I say, let's hear it. Does that sound reasonable to you? Because, it's so wonderful, because they're very welcome to say it doesn't. And I welcome them to say that, because maybe I missed something. And if they do say, not at all, actually, it doesn't sound reasonable, then I can hear them and I can go, oh, tell me why. Maybe I'm miscommunicating something, or I'm missing something. Okay. But usually what it allows them to do is to get off of their defensive and answer the question, like, realistically. Like, does that sound reasonable? If I was reasonable in my response and why it's extra, they have to answer that question. No, it's not reasonable. Or yes, it actually does sound reasonable. And so when it kind of shifts it a bit, and then they go, all right, well, actually it does sound reasonable, but can I actually make this little request here? It's such a beautiful end to that, follow-up. You got a sticking point, little friction, you handle it expertly, and then does that sound reasonable to you, Mike? And then they go, actually it does. Okay, sure. You're the pilot, you take care of it. I'll go sit back here.
Okay, I'm going to shout out the hater in the comments right now listening. You probably already wrote the comment and you already posted it. And I see you there saying, never ask a client if it's reasonable or not. Don't ask that client because it just solicits a no response and blah, blah, blah. I know you're out there. I know you're thinking it. It is a tool in your toolkit as a project manager. You do not always ask it. You can ask it when it feels right, and you don't have to ask it when it doesn't feel right. It is not an every time do it this way thing. So I like that question, Brad. I like that question. Is it reasonable? Does this sound reasonable to you? And then if the client says, oh, yeah, the way you put it that way, I get it. That does sound reasonable. I'd rather do it now than have it be $1,200 later. So let's do it. That's good. But sometimes if you ask it and they come back to you saying, no, that's not reasonable, I'm so mad about this, what do you do then? You just go back to robot and you follow the same process and you say, oh, I understand that might be upsetting to you. And I understand that it might have been under the assumption that was included, but it wasn't. And you can see that in our agreement. And then you give them robot, beep, boop, beep, boop. And I'm going to send you a change order later today. You can decide if you want to add it or not. It's not going to affect the project that we scoped for you. So why don't you sleep on it? We'll send that change order over. You sleep on it. Let me know tomorrow. And you just kind of squelch the frustration that they have right then with this scope increase change order. Squelch it and tell them, decide tomorrow. And oftentimes, after you've explained it and you've shown the empathy and you've acknowledged their assumptions, then they come back to you and they're like, okay, yeah, let's just do it. Or, no, you know what? We decided to save the $500. We're not going to add that feature. Either way, you win.
Yeah. You've strengthened that relationship. They trust you more, and they see when they've tested you, whether they're doing it purposefully or not. It's usually unconscious. They see, oh, you're in control, because they want you to be in control. And it's like dogs in a pack. They test the leader just to see, like, are you actually a leader here, or are you bluffing? And if you're bluffing, someone's going to take that leader spot because someone's got to lead. And that's going to end up being the client. And then they're not the right leader for the job here. You are. So be it. And then if they test you, don't bluff.
Yeah. So good. Okay. All right. Another thing that a client who is difficult might be perceived as being a bad client is that they have a tight timeline. They come to you and they're like, I need this ASAP. I need it done now. Can you get it done tomorrow? And you, in your PTSD-based reaction, might say to yourself, oh crap, this client sucks, man. I hate this client. That's what you could be thinking in your head, when in reality, they're just a difficult client and you've got to manage them. Brad, how do you manage a client that gives you that emergency deadline kind of vibe? I need this now. It's got to be done tomorrow.
Well, first of all, I'd want to maybe fact check that. I wouldn't want to put them on the defensive, but I'd want to, again, follow that formula in a sense where you're kind of being empathetic. You want to understand, first of all, is this true? Or did they, have a dream last night or had a client call or something came up with a customer and like it just in their mind felt urgent at the moment. I know that I get that all the time when I go, I'm outside in my backyard and my wife and I are doing something over here in the garden, and then the kids break something on the trampoline. And then I notice like, okay, priority here is finish the garden here because it's all torn up. The trampoline is ripped. That seems like a priority. And I should probably handle that because kids are jumping on it. And then over here, I notice, we don't have a chair for the thing. We need a seating area. We need a chair. And it's on the top of my mind. If I'm not thinking clearly for a moment, I might rip off to Home Depot and go get some chairs. But it's not the priority. It's not urgent. It's not an emergency. Actually, the trampoline was the emergency, and I can reshift priorities. So you take a moment to actually try and understand. So show some empathy. Hey, I understand. It seems like, this is an emergency and it feels really urgent. I just have a couple questions to ask. Help me understand why it's an emergency. What does that look like? What would happen if we didn't do anything? And, rework the questions however you want. You need to understand, is it actually an emergency? Then the next step would really be to, if it's not an emergency, find a nice way of saying, here's how it affects the project. And if we want to prioritize this, we're going to need to push other things out of the way. And that's going to cost us in some time. If we want to prioritize it and not affect the schedule, that is outside of scope as per our agreement in the contract here. And it will cost extra. Here's what that looks like.
Yeah.
And you could throw the, does that sound reasonable, at them again if you really want to.
You love it. You love, does that sound reasonable?
Love it. And you could rework that. You can go, is that fair? Am I being fair here? Let them tell you you're not being fair. If you're not, it's a welcome invitation to say, actually, it doesn't sound fair. And you can go, okay, well, I understand. You can do that whole thing and you can repeat that cycle. But the quick turnaround, if it really is an emergency and it's outside of the scope, then remember that that's your client's problem. And you need to know that it's not your problem to deal with within the budget that you've budgeted. So throw at them, don't be afraid to be a business owner and say, in order for us to handle that, it's going to be extra. And here's what that looks like. And here's the option of doing that with priority. And here's the cost. And here's the option where we don't. You let me know how you'd like to proceed. Now, what the client gets to do is decide, is it actually an emergency where I'm paying $700 extra? Or can I put that on the back of the list and maybe handle that afterwards?
Yeah.
Or let it happen in due time.
It's amazing how many of these emergency timelines all of a sudden become not an emergency when you tell them it's going to cost extra to hit the timeline. They're like, you say, oh, we could have it done to you in the normal time, like we talked about originally, and that's $3,000 and it'll be done in 2 weeks. Or like you said, you need it by Monday because of some shifting priorities. And now it's going to be $5,000 because we're going to work over the weekend and get it done for you. Are you okay with that budget increase for the accelerated timeline? Then they're like, no, actually, you know what? 2 weeks is fine. It happens so much. As soon as somebody knows that it's going to cost them extra for a speedy turnaround, all of a sudden they don't care nearly as much about the speedy turnaround.
Yeah.
Have you seen that happen? Have you had that happen?
100%. 100%.
Yeah,
it's like
totally
they're
happens.
just testing to see if, like, unconsciously, it's kind of like they're testing to see if you're in control or not, I think.
Yeah.
And if they can get a little extra, we all want that. If we're on the airplane and they bring around like the complimentary pretzels and like coffee or whatever.
Yeah. Give me
And then
3
you're
bags
like,
of the pretzels.
you know, I'd also like the cookies. I saw the cookies
Yeah.
there and the pretzels. Like, can I have both? And then they come and and they're like, you know what? Sure, we'll give that to you. You got kids, sure. But if you come back around the second time, you go, hey, do you mind if I grab a couple more of those cookies? They're gonna be like, either, sorry, no, it's complimentary one time, or sure, here. And they take out the little machine and they say taps on the top, and you see it's like $5. You're like, you know what? Never mind. I'm
I don't
okay.
need the cookies.
I'll pass. I don't need them. It's not an emergency. That's just all it is. They're just testing to see, like, what can I get out of this, really? And I've seen that where you say, for sure, it's going to cost a little extra, and here's how it works, and here's why. Does that sound fair? Oh, you know what? Second thought, it's not actually an emergency. We'll push it to the back, and we don't need to worry about that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Okay, one of the things that you highlighted there, Brad, that I think is so important, a fast turnaround time is your client's problem. That's their problem. And until you say yes to the price that you want to charge for it, it stays their problem. But once you say yes, then it becomes your problem, and it better be paying you enough to make it worth becoming your problem. So that's the thing to keep in mind with these speedy turnarounds. It's their problem. If they want to make it your problem, you better charge them enough to make it worth your while.
I love that. That made me just think, like, the whole client service provider relationship is based on that. It's, you have a problem and I will make it my problem and I will get rid of it in exchange for, in this case, money. You know, that's how this works.
Yeah.
It's your problem right now. I will make it my problem and I'll make it go away. And this is how much it costs to make that happen. For it to be worth being my problem. I like that.
I do. I love that. I love that perspective, because all of a sudden, mentally, it gives me my power back. Gives me my power back. And I hate when a client takes my power away. I hate that. I hate that feeling. Okay, next one on this list, that a client might be just a difficult client, but they are perceived as being a bad client, is when they're like, you get toward the end of the project and they're like, I know we've had all our design rounds, but can we just make one last little change? Just one last change. And then all of a sudden, one last change becomes 2 changes, 3 changes, 5 changes, 700 changes, 5,000 changes. What was the most you ever did, Brad, of change rounds for a client?
I am probably glad I never tracked it, but it would be like a project that was meant to be done in 6 weeks that, you know, stretched out for months. Yeah. And you couldn't even track what is this project anymore. We're 8 weeks past the last invoice due date, and I'm not like nightmarish rookie moves. That happened as a rookie in my early days of doing client work. And it's painful.
Yeah, mine too. It was rookie days. It was my first year in business, and I can't remember. I did an Instagram reel about this, but I made like 70 versions of a logo or 100 something versions of a logo. It was just, I just kept throwing more spaghetti at the wall, hoping that one of these would stick with the client. And at the end of the day, we finally got through the project. I made my $250 for the stupid logo. But it was so many rounds because I was afraid to tell the client, whoa, this is out of scope to do this many rounds of changes. It's out of scope. Okay, so what do we do in this situation when the client says, oh, you have just one last little change in this before we're done? What do you say?
Well, you always have to make sure you have a contract. Like, if you don't, like, all of this becomes null if you don't have a contract. Like, the client can push you around and you dance to the beat of the client's drum if you have no contract. So make sure that's the case, and make sure you have a clause in there where you make sure that you're protecting yourself from scope creep and from additional rounds. You get to choose. You might say, like, I do one deliverable with 0 revisions, and that sounds pretty, stiff and unreasonable, but it is totally valid if you have, like, say, a productized service, which is a lower price, and you go, you get the end result. Like, I made the cake for you. There's your cake. You don't get to customize the cake that's off the wall. Like, I put your name on it and a happy birthday to your kid. Like, I'm not going to go and turn it into like a ninja riding a unicorn type thing.
Yes. Yes, the ninja unicorn metaphor.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Good. He's bringing it back from the last
brought it
episode.
back. I tied it right in
It's
there.
good.
So you make sure you have that, you set the terms. But if you say, I do 2 rounds, we do this many meetings and this many revisions, you get to determine what that is. And then you say, outside of that, it's out of scope and will be billed additionally based on X hourly rate, X daily fee, or determined at the time based on X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you have that.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to do in this situation is give them the first one free. So they say to you, hey, just one last little thing. And then you respond and say, oh, sorry, we have used up all of the rounds of changes on this project, but I see that it is a small thing that you're asking for. I'll go ahead and make that change and we won't charge you extra for it. But any changes after that, we're going to have to bill at an hourly rate. Hope that's okay with you. And then you changed a no, we can't make this change into a client saying, oh, thank you. Thank you for not charging me on this one. And then when they come back to you on the next one, you just reminded them that it's going to cost more for the extra round number 2, 3, 4. And now you're empowered to say, oh yeah, that last one, like I told you last time, that was the free one. This one will charge by the hour. I think it'll be about an hour to make that extra change. Are you comfortable with the invoice of $120 to make that extra change? And then they're like, yeah, okay, I know you told me. I can't, and you can't keep going forever. I get it. I understand that in your business. So that little give them the freebie, remove the contention on change extra 1, and then empower yourself to charge for change extra 2.
Yeah. It's like, this one's on the house. And you teach the client how to treat you. And again, that's you taking control. That's you taking the pilot seat and going, look, no worries. I got this one. This one's on the house. We took care of that change. Any changes, like this in the future, this is how it works. Just as a heads up. This one's on the house. Don't worry about it. And then they go, oh, amazing. Okay, great. That was, you did me a solid, and then you've trained them to know if they ask for another thing, they might not ask for another thing outside of scope, but maybe they do. They just know it's going to cost them extra. You've already set the stage. Set the stage.
So good. I love doing that in sales in general. And at the end of the day, a lot of this is selling. It's us selling them on extra money. It's us selling them on kicking away their emergency timeline. It's client relationship skills and convincing a client to make a smart decision and protecting yourself. That's at the end of the day what's going on here. Let's do this very last one, Brad. That is, the client is difficult, but you might perceive them as bad when they come to you and say, well, I like what you guys did here, but I got a better idea. What do you do when the client does that, Brad?
That's a good one. First of all, I like that one a lot because I think this is an opportunity for you to exercise some humility and know that, like, your idea, first of all, it's like, it's not all about you and your ideas. Though you probably are the expert here, you should be as a service provider, and you are, being humble and letting them feel like, you're not trying to step all over them and be like, look, I'm the expert here. You're hiring the expert. Sit back with your silly little opinions. Like, that's a real fast track way for them to be like, I don't like this person. I don't like them. I think they're arrogant. I think they're, whatever list that they want to throw at you in their mind. And they come up with a picture and a character of who you are. So like, be humble and like put your pride aside is what I'm saying. Feel free to put that in like a tagline. Put your pride aside.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is the same sort of process. There's like a formula here to the response. There's a trigger of, I got a better idea. So they might not be trying to say that your ideas suck, but in some way they kind of said that, whether intentionally or not. If they're a narcissist, then they're trying to make you feel lesser than and put you below them. Hopefully you've spotted that they're a narcissist before you took them on as a client. But let's say we're here. We're here now. And I got a better idea. You know that you are actually the expert and your ideas are probably better. But you can be empathetic and go, interesting. I actually think, it's really neat that you had that idea. Tell me a little bit more about that idea. Let them kind of play around with it. Let them flesh it out a bit, but be empathetic and understand where they're coming from. But then take that and benchmark it against, is this actually supporting the project? Like, I like your ideas. You've always got some really cool ideas. I appreciate when you throw them at me. But I just want to make sure that we're aligning this with the project just to make sure. And so I like to approach, our projects kind of with data. And I'm going to look at this and say, does this actually support, the project? Let's test this out, perhaps. Let's maybe do a little test and see how this works before we go all in on it. Let's give it the light of day and, and maybe entertain the idea. Now, you don't have to do that. If you just know, like, this is a bad idea, then find a nice way of maybe letting them come to the conclusion that it doesn't support the project. Yeah. So you might say, okay, well, here's our goal. Here's what we're trying to get to. You mentioned to me at the beginning of our project here, that this is your timeline and this is what you're going for. And this was the ultimate objective. Are we still on the same page there? Yes, yeah. I definitely want that. We want to make sure that happens. Okay. Help me to understand this idea. It's your idea and I'm not in your head. So help me get in your head. Tell me how that gets us there. I want to understand that. I'm going to take some notes and then let them put it on them. Let them tell you how it gets you to the end goal. And maybe it does perfectly. And you go, wow, I did not see it that way. Very cool. Let's do a test. Or they go, shoot, this doesn't make sense. I was better in my head. You know what? Let me figure this out. Let me mull it over. And then you go, good. You mull it over and we can revisit this. And then, we can see how it might fit into the project, maybe in a retainer down the line or something like that. Prime them, kind of set the stage a bit.
Yeah. There are tools that allow you to test designs, ideas, copy, all those kinds of things. You can test this stuff. There are tools out there that exist for this. SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics and probably a dozen other tools trying to compete that allow you to get feedback from people in your target audience. And then you got data. You want to try and take opinion out of these decisions. And there are three opinions in any creative project. There are three opinions in any creative project. Opinion from the client, whether they like it or not, that's their opinion. Your opinion, whether you like it or not, that's your opinion. And then the target customer's opinion, whether they like it or not, that's their opinion. Of those three opinions inside of a creative project, which one is the most valuable? Which one, Brad? Which is the most? The client's, yours, or the target customer?
Yeah, that's the customer. For sure.
The customer. And a lot of times, if we bring that back to a client, when they're saying, I got a better idea, you can bring it back to, I understand that's a great idea. That's really interesting. We got an interesting idea here too. Which of these do you think will resonate best with the target customer? Then you're talking about the right opinion, not the client's, not yours, but the target customer. And then go and do research and use a Qualtrics and spend some money, and use a Survey Monkey and spend some money and get some feedback on which of these things is preferred, X or Y. And oftentimes you're going to find that the data supports one or the other. And if it's indifferent, the data is 50-50 on these two choices, then who cares if either of them will work? So that's a win too. So if there's not a clear winner, then choose one. And in that situation, choose the client. You got 3 people that you want to appease with the work that you're doing. Person number 1 is the target customer. Person number 2 is you got to please the client. And person number 3 is that you got to please yourself and be proud of the work that you're doing. But don't forget that you're person number 3 on this. Yeah. Person number 1 is by far the most important. The client is second most important, and having them be happy. And then you're the least important opinion in the mix.
Yeah. That's that humility.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Well, do we have anything else relating to that? I think just a closing thought relating to that is that it costs a lot less money, a lot less time, and a lot less money to test a concept than it does to completely redo something because a bad idea got pushed live. Take the Gap logo from a few years ago that was live for all of like 10 hours. And do you know that story, Brad?
I don't know that story. That sounds fascinating.
The Gap redesigned their brand a few years ago. They launched, and the backlash was so massive that within, I think, a day or a week or something, they reverted back to their original brand. Are you looking that up right now?
I looked it up, and
isn't that crazy?
Hilarious. Yeah.
It's crazy. So they thought somebody had a wild hair somewhere inside of the Gap marketing arm and thought it's time for a rebrand. Somebody in the decision maker thing pushed that rebrand through, and it was a fail. It was one of the biggest fails in any brand launch ever. And I don't know what they spent on it. I'm sure it was millions of dollars, because that's what these things cost, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this branding, this new branding that they threw away in just a very short amount of days. Does it say on there, Brad? You're looking it up. How long was it live?
Looking it up. It was live for all but 6 days. 6 days. 6 days. So October 6th, 2010, they changed it. And then October 12th, 2010, they put it back to their old logo. That was 1990. Yeah. And it seems like it cost them. I don't know if this is the sales they've lost, or if this is what it says. The new logo was designed by New York-based creative agency Laird & Partners, holds a solid reputation in the field of branding and communication. It is estimated to have cost around $100 million. And yeah. And so that, I don't think counts, if I'm getting this right. The decline in sales. So the urge to modernize was criticized. Panic to do something and quick to fix fallen sales. So with figures showing that the same store sales at the time were down 4%, following 10% decline the year before. So it's like, it not only cost them the cost to redesign and rebrand and everything that went into that, but it was like it was like a negative impact as well, and they switched back real fast.
Yeah, this is what I call a panic rebrand. That's what I call a panic rebrand. They're like, oh no, something's going wrong here. Our business is going down. And so they panic rebrand thinking that it's going to solve the problem. Wow. And the reality is that there was nothing wrong with the Gap logo. And shout out to Laird & Partners. Is that the agency? But there was nothing wrong with the rebrand either. The rebrand was fine. It just wasn't the original Gap logo that was already entrenched as their brand. But the rebrand style was fine. There was nothing glaringly ugly about it or bad. It just was an unnecessary panic rebrand that got pushed through somehow. So again, going back to the point of that is it's so much cheaper to test a concept rather than go to market with a bad idea only to redo it later on.
Yeah.
Yep.
100%.
Okay. This was super fun. So this is some thoughts on, is your client a bully? Are they a bad client? Or are they just difficult? And most of the time, the client is just difficult. And all of the time, if the client is a bad client, you got to sniff it out in qualification and don't work with them. Have the courage to say no, because if you think they're bad during qualification, imagine how bad it's going to get during the project itself.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you got to make sure that in that qualification, that's your safety net before you even take it on the client. You make sure, is this the right fit? Is this a good client? Am I going to work with this person? Is this right? And know that there's going to be difficulties, and make sure that you maintain control of the project. You're flying the plane, be courteous, be empathetic, and understand the client. Let them feel like they have, requests and direction, and it's honored and understood, but also make sure they know who's flying the plane. And you can do that. It's a series of formulas, just like we outlined today. And it's oftentimes just a difficult client. It's just a person being human and not a bad client. The bad clients you sniff out and you get rid of, you show the door right from the get-go as soon as you can. And have protection clauses in your contract for those bad clients. They reveal themselves some partway through the client, and that's happened, and that will happen. But that's why you have those protection clauses there to go, this is the trigger that I say I'm invoking this clause, and we can't do this, and we're going to be parting ways here. And you do that as amicably as you possibly can. But that's really what you got to do.
Yep.
So speaking of taking the lead here, I'm pretty sure I kicked the
you
show
did,
off
so
today.
take it away.
I'm going to put you back in the
close us
co-pilot
out.
seat there.
Yeah, that's where I belong. I'm in the sidecar of the bat cycle. That's where I ride. I'm just sitting there holding on.
I could just
beep, 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 beep. I'm holding on, ready to go. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, this was a great session. I really enjoyed this one. So everybody, I hope you thought the same and you enjoyed this episode as well of 2 Pixels Off. Thanks for listening. Special shout out to our friends at Wix Studio for enabling Mike and I to get up to these sorts of shenanigans and hopefully deliver some value to you, while also showing you that Wix Studio is such a great option for your agency and your creative studio with the tools, the business tools, and not only that, but the editor to be able to create amazing work, amazing sites for your clients. Go to 2pixelsoff.com. Learn more about the podcast. Don't forget to leave us a review. It really, really helps Mike feel better, because we learned that.
Oh, no doubt, man. It really does.
It does. It's like therapy. Every star is like therapy.
It is. It's so therapeutic. Now, don't leave us a 1-star, because if you're the person out there leaving 1-star reviews, you got to reassess your life, honestly. Just keep on scrolling. You don't have to listen, and you certainly don't have to leave a 1-star review on our podcast or anybody else's podcast. Come on, people.
For that matter.
Come on.
I
what
like
good
to say,
does that do?
Look for the 3 and 4-star reviews if you want to learn and grow. The 1-star reviews are usually someone trying to hurt your feelings, and it's not indicative of the actual product or podcast.
That's good advice.
5-star reviews, I love them. I love them, but it's
keep them coming.
Sometimes it's flattery, and I'm okay. Like, flatter us. But if you're looking for feedback,
give me the flattery. You
know what? 5 stars all the way. Flatter Mike.
You know what? Get the 3 to 4-star review crap. We don't want any of that. Just drop a 5-star review. Make us happy. Come on. I need it. My self-esteem is struggling. It's struggling.
Every 5-star counts, folks. Leave us that 5-star review, and we will see you next time.